Well, hello there, good evening and welcome to Inside Line Racing. My name is Alex Lilio, your ILR3 commentator for this evening and for the duration of this current season. Apologies for starting the commentary and the broadcast a few minutes later than I normally do. I've been having a few technical issues. My laptop crashed about an hour ago and I've had to restart it and then go through many sorts of updates to get it all back up and running. But hopefully I'm here now, hopefully the stream is running, hopefully you wonderful guys and girls can enjoy some nice action tonight around the historic and very fantastic Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve here in Montreal in Canada for what is round 7 of season 4 in Inside Line Racing, the ILR3 tier. You see a majority of the drivers then have already set their first initial run in qualifying. Spaghetti Chips in the McLaren currently on provisional pole with a 108.484. Flexi, and we'll talk about Flexi in a little minute, he's currently in second place, and then the lead Renault of EFC Matthew up into third place. 11 of the 18 drivers have set lap times. We're missing 2 drivers here tonight, not too sure who they are, still trying to go through the order to work out who is where. So yeah, we've got Rinky Marie up in 5th place, Zenki as well up into 7th. We've got a few new drivers in here as well. Dougie Antonio's recently joined ILR3. We've also got Larkin 4S in the Toro Rosso. He is one of our reserve drivers. He's making an appearance tonight as well. And obviously Kevin Portugal as well, who's been putting on some stellar performances since joining ILR3, and currently watching him now just complete his outlap. We'll try and find someone else. Dougie Antonio, I believe, is on a flying lap at the moment, just coming down to the final chicane. Hopefully he gets it all nice and right through here and doesn't collide with the wall of champions there, but it looks like he's going to be able to complete this lap. Where is it going to put him? It puts him as an invalidation, actually. He's obviously invalidated. A 108.0 would have put him on pole position, but obviously no lap time there, so he has invalidated. He's got to go again then. So then I'm still getting random updates on my laptop that I need to close down, and it's annoying me a little bit, but one thing we can do then is talk about the drivers and therefore the Constructors' Championship as well. So Tough to Handle then, being very consistent this season for the Williams. He leads the championship on 97 points, a massive 31 ahead of the McLaren driver of Spaghetti Chips, who's currently on provisional pole. In third place, Tough to Handle's teammate Konzo's been backing him up all season long. He's in third on 64 points, just 2 points behind Spaghetti Chips. Then you have Boogster and Flexi in 4th and 5th on 52 and 39, both retirements a couple of weeks ago at Monaco. And then behind them we have the likes of EFC Matthew, Liam Robbo, EVR Matt as well. And down at the bottom of the standings then, a few drivers still yet to really make an impact in ILR3. We've got Rinky Marie down in 17th, he's only on 2 points. LMC Vettel in the Ferrari is only on 1. Paul McGuinness as well in the Haas, still sitting on that lovely 0 points. So the 3 reserves that we do now have in ILR3, constantly it changes about because people leave the league and then other people, let's say for example Lego Minecraft, have proved to be too quick, so they move up another tier. So the 3 reserves that we do have is Kevin Portugal, Lewis 11004 and Larkin, all 3 drivers here tonight. Kevin Portugal in the Mercedes, Lewis in the Haas, Larkin in the Toro Rosso. As for the Constructors then, well, with Tough to Handle on Konzo 1st and 3rd, you can probably put your money on Williams leading the Constructors, and they are a massive 161 points. I think 89 ahead of McLaren, who are in 2nd on 72, and then a close battle for 3rd between Renault, Ferrari and Force India. Renault on 54, Ferrari 53, Force India 47, and propping up the Constructors table is the Haas team, currently sitting on just 18 points. So that is the Drivers and Constructors Championship all spoken about. Now we'll talk about the little incident we've had with Flexi. So then, for those of you that tuned in to the Monaco live stream, and I apologise for not being there, LMC Vettel has been disqualified from the session for blocking the pit lane. How have you managed that? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. We won't need to talk about him, as he's going to be starting the race from the back. So Flexi then, he was, I believe, leading the race at Monaco when the conditions went from dry to wet. He pitted for the intermediate tyres, and he came upon, I believe it was Lewis, who was driving the Mercedes at that time, who was struggling around the 2nd and 3rd sector trying to get back to the pits because he missed his window of opportunity to pit for the intermediate tyres. Car got away from him a little bit, he lost control, hit the wall, bounced across the track and hit poor old Flexi, and both of them were out of the race. There was a lot of talk after the race and involving with the stewards, Flexi as well, to social media to talk about his displeasure at the way it had all been handled, but it has now all been resolved. Flexi has apologised for his comments and his actions, and now is focusing on bouncing back from the disappointment of Monaco with a positive result tonight. So far he's doing well, up into 2nd place, just 3 tenths shy of Spaghetti Chips. Just over 6 minutes left of the session as well. Just 12 drivers have set a lap time then. We'll be expecting a few more of these guys to go quickly as the session goes on. Lewis, in fact, now up into provisional pole with a 108.466. Kevin Portugal still yet to do a lap time. He's on a flying one now. Same for Tough to Handle, I believe, possibly. Is he on a flying lap? It looks quick, but yeah, I don't think this is going to be... Well, it could be challenging pole position. Actually, just coming across the line now, it's going to be a mid-8. It is. It's a 108.602, but he's had an invalidation, so no lap time from him. We'll come back to Kevin Portugal then, see how he's getting on as he tackles the final chicane. This looks quite quick as well. Staying over to the far side of the circuit, he comes across the line and does take provisional pole then, and immediately clips the wall and retires. So Kevin Portugal then, he's put the car in pole position and wants no further part in this session. Currently up there on a 108.306. So we'll come back to Tough to Handle then. So we'll quickly talk about the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve and why it is so fantastic and so challenging for these drivers. First thing to talk about then, we have 3 DRS zones here. In years gone by, we've just had the 2 from the hairpin to the final chicane, and then another one leading across the main straight. We now have another one in Sector 2, I believe, between turns 6 and 7 or 7 and 8. Do correct me in the comments if I am wrong. So that little zone there won't really be used too much for overtaking unless you come out the corner previously right underneath the gearbox of the car ahead of you. It will just be used to close up before you really do attack the car ahead in the main 2 DRS zones. The detection point for the main 2 ones across the back straight and the main straight is just before the hairpin, and it's just one detection point as well. So if you close up on the hairpin and then don't, sorry, I should say fail to get past going into the final chicane, well, you've got another stab at DRS to maybe get past into turn 1. If you do manage to make the overtake stick before the final chicane, you've got the DRS there to hopefully put a bit of breathing space between yourself and the car you've just left in your wake down into turn 1. This is a circuit that does require quite a lot of overtaking opportunities, but again, being a very fast sort of semi-permanent street circuit here, these guys have got to take a lot of care as well as the session goes on. And obviously the tyres here this weekend, we've got the Hypersoft, the Ultrasoft and the Supersoft, the 3 grippiest and quickest tyres here. So we'll be expecting either a 1 or a 2 stop strategy. Of course, virtual safety car and real safety cars could play a part to it as well. Could be plenty of incidents at the start of the race as well, which could see drivers going into the pits earlier than expected. As we're just watching Conzo here in the Williams, yet to set a lap time. He's coming into the pits as well, so he's going to get one opportunity then at the end of the qualifying session. Same for 20 Boy and our championship leader Tough to Handle, who's just coming back out of the pits at the moment. 21 people watching, plenty of comments coming in the chat, so thank you very much for joining in here and dropping if your comments, anything I see that's quite humorous or quite factual to this evening, then I will of course read them out. Any predictions from anyone out there? Who's going to take the pole position? Is Kevin Portugal going to lose that top spot, and who's going to be a favourite for this race? Of course you could also put something in there saying who's going to be the first one to crash, because there will almost certainly be someone in the first couple of laps. So Tough to Handle event, he's now out there on an out lap. Dougie Antonio as well, I believe he's possibly on a quick lap. This might be an out lap actually, he's a bit off the pace a little bit there. In fact, he's coming back into the pits, so I don't think Dougie Antonio is going to have enough time to set a lap time here. 20 Boy and Conzo still in the pits, hopefully they will be back out shortly as well. Owen Wyatt has got himself into 12th position on a 110.121 and has retired from the session. So Larkin, one of our 3 reserve drivers, currently in 11th place. Lewis, another reserve driver, he's 2nd. And obviously we've got Kevin Portugal on provisional pole at the moment as well. And Scott 13 coming in here saying Owen Wyatt first to crash, all in capital letters. So he wants to make that point very clear that he thinks that Owen's going to be the first one out. And well, he's already out of qualifying, but I think he's retired rather than crashed. So Tough to Handle event coming across the line. 2 minutes and 1 second left of a session. He will have an opportunity to go over 2 flying laps, but he might be out of ERS and fuel by the time he starts out. We've got yellow flags in Sector 3. Rinky Marie has retired from the session. Conzo coming back out of pits as well at the moment. 20 Boy still in the garage, and he is running out of time if he wants an opportunity. Same for Dougie Antonio. So Lewis then coming out the final corner now. And he's now beginning his flying lap. Spaghetti Chips also out there on circuit. I believe Spaghetti Chips is on a flying lap. So Smasher coming in and saying if Lewis gets pole without using the hypers, I'll be surprised. And Luke is apologising for not being able to race today, but he's sure that Paul McGuinness will get the win. Well, if Paul McGuinness gets the win tonight, I will eat something I don't like, put it that way. So Spaghetti Chips across the line. and he fails to improve on his lap time. Just a minute left of the session. We'll have a look at the Williams drivers, see what's going on there. Tough to handle then, coming up to the line. And he pops himself up into 4th place. So our championship leader can only do well enough for 4th at the moment. Dougie Antonio is now out on an outlap. 20 Boy is not going to be coming back out again. And Konzo now comes across the line to start his flying lap. 40 seconds left of the session, so everyone's starting a flying lap now. This is their last opportunity to move up the grid. Tough to handle with tyres from Session, as has Spaghetti Chips, and a few other drivers as well. They could not improve. Flexi on an outlap then. We've got Lewis as well. He's coming up to the line, I believe, now to start his flying lap. I believe he's already been out there for a couple of laps, so he might be in danger here of not being able to improve. We've got Zenki. Just 14 seconds left of the session. He's on the super soft tyres, it's showing me. That is a surprise. So Lewis is retired from the session. Paul McGuinness back into the pits as well. We'll have a look at Konzo then. So the session is now over. The top 4 have retired from the session. Flexi, I believe, is somewhere in Sector 1. So we'll keep an eye on Konzo to see what he's doing. Where's Dougie Antonio? We know he's quick. He's in Sector 2. So I think that Konzo, Dougie Antonio and Flexi are the only ones that can really challenge for a top 4, top 5 here. Scotsman in the Williams. Coming through the final chicane. That's very nice indeed. Opens up the DRS, sticks to the right hand side of the circuit. It's the shortest run to the line, and Konzo does indeed. Puts a very nice lap in, moves himself up into 3rd place. Flexi is coming up to the hairpin. Where is Dougie Antonio in all of this? He's coming into the final chicane now. The McLaren driver, recently a new addition to ILR3. Let's see what he can do. Hasn't set a lap time yet, and Dougie takes provisional pole. The McLaren driver with a fantastic 108.151. Blinding lap there from the McLaren driver. Eclipses everyone's expectations and puts that car on provisional pole. Flexi is the only driver that can dispose him from that number 1 spot. The Force India driver looking to bounce back from his Monaco disappointment. Across the line, and I think it's P2. I think it's P2. It is indeed the Force India driver up into 2nd place. But well done to Dougie. A fantastic lap at the end of the session there to put that McLaren and himself on provisional pole. So there we go then. Dougie Antonio takes provisional, well, not provisional anymore, he does take pole position, just 900ths ahead of Flexi in the Force India. Kevin Portugal continuing his strong run in ILR3 at the moment in 3rd place, backed up by Lewis in 4th. Then we have Konzo in the lead, Williams in 5th, with Spaghetti Chips and Tough to Handle in 6th and 7th. So the top 3 in the championship then, all together 5th, 6th and 7th. The top 10 is completed by Rinky Marie in the Red Bull, Nigel in the 2nd Mercedes, and Zenki, Rinky Marie's teammate, inside the top 10. Then Larkin, EFC Matthew, EVR Matt, Paul McGuinness and all of the rest. So I'm going to take a quick break here as we allow the drivers a little bit of time to fine tune their setups and race strategies, but do stay tuned for the race here at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. So here we go then. Drivers now on the formation lap. Dougie Antonio at the top of the pile. I'll bring up the tyre details then so that everyone knows what's going on. Of course, as per F1 rules and regulations, those that qualified inside the top 10 have to start the race on the tyres they set their best time on. And we do have a bit of a spread there. Zenki up in 10th place on those super soft tyres. So we've got Dougie and Flexi on the front row on the pink walled hyper soft tyres. Kevin Portugal and Lewis third and fourth on the ultra soft tyres. Konzo, Spaghetti Chips also gone hypers. Tough to handle. Rinky Marie and Nigel on the ultras, and then Zenki on the supers. Everyone outside the top 10. A majority are starting on the most durable tyre here, the super soft tyres, apart from EFC Matthew in 12th and Paul McGuinness in 14th. So it's going to be a spread of strategies throughout this race. One and the two stop is possible. There's not much difference between them in time because, of course, you hurtle into the start of the pit lane, essentially in the braking zone for the final chicane just here, and you cut out turn 1 and the apex for turn 2 as you come out the pit lane as well. So a two-stop strategy isn't that much of a disadvantage here. It's going to be a bit clustery on the first lap. It's such a narrow, tight circuit here. So the leaders have got to make sure they get a nice clean start. The likes of Konzo, Spaghetti Chips and Tough to Handle, if they want to keep up their championship charge, they've got to get their way past some of these guys fairly quickly. But we know the top 4 very, very quick in their own right. Watch out for the likes of 20 Boy and LMC Vettel at the back of the grid that failed to set a lap time. So all the drivers are now on the grid. We're going to have 35 laps of red hot action here in Canada. The 5 lights on now. It's McLaren versus Force India. And the lights go out and away we go now. All the drivers pulling away in a cloud of tyre smoke. Good start by Dougie. He holds on to the lead. Kevin already up the inside of Flexi going into turn 1. It's all bottling up in the midfield as well. In second and third going against each other. Lewis and Konzo going into battle for 4th and 5th. Bit of contact there between him, and Konzo's had to back out of it. Might give Spaghetti Chips an opportunity to get past going into turn 3, but he's had to hold back behind the Williams driver. Rinky Marie up to 7th place. So our championship leader is not making any early gains here as we filter back through the midfield as well. The Renault drivers very close together. We've got Owen Wyatt's made a couple of positions up as well. 20 Boy and Vettel still at the back of the field. They need to make progress early on, but it's Dougie that leads coming through sector 2. Flexi holding on to 2nd place. Kevin Portugal's been bumped back down to 3rd place. Lewis holds on to 4th. Konzo there in 5th position as well. I think Lewis is challenging Kevin Portugal on the approach to the hairpin. Goes in very deep and he's had to check up a little bit. That might compromise him on the exit. The top 2 won't mind though. They can start to disappear, and Lewis has got to be looking in his mirrors because that Mercedes is very, very fast in a straight line. Konzo as well be hoping that these two trip over each other as we come down to the final chicane to complete lap 1 of 35 here. Everyone has been well behaved, it seems. Haven't seen any debris or any cars in the wall so far as all these cars filter through. And look at this, fantastic. It's a cascade of beautiful reds and yellows and whites and blues. And it's Dougie and Flexi going into battle, coming into turn 2. But Dougie holds on to it at the moment. Flexi in 2nd. Lewis now in 3rd place. He's got Kevin Portugal still behind in 4th. And Tough to Handle is a loser in this. He started in 7th. He's now down into 8th. And we've got yellow flags in sector 1. We've got Wazzy recovering to the circuit with a damaged front wing there. I think he's either lost it or made contact with someone else. Everyone else seems to be going away relatively unharmed. So we'll bring up the position changes and see who the big movers and shakers are in this race. Well, Lewis has managed to jump Kevin Portugal. Rinky Marie has managed to jump Tough to Handle. And of course there's a smattering of position changes further back as well. Paul McGuinness on the ultra soft tyres has gained 1 position. Owen Wyatt has moved up 2. EVR Matt is the one that's lost out. We've got a move between Larkin and Zenki in the hairpin for the final point at the moment. And further up, so we've got Nigel and Tough to Handle going side by side. No DRS yet, of course, but there's plenty of opportunities around here for these cars and engines to stretch their legs and pick up a nice, healthy amount of slipstream. So Tough to Handle has to defend the inside, going into the chicane a little bit. It might compromise him on the exit. Meanwhile, the lap times keep tumbling down. Dougie Antonio and then Kevin Portugal, and it's Lewis and Flexi going into battle again, going into turn 1 and turn 2. Lap 3 then, DRS now enabled. Free detection, or free DRS zone, just to say. But the main action will be down to the final chicane and into turn 1 as well. But Dougie then leads by 7/10 of a second ahead of Flexi, who's got Lewis all over the back of him like a cheap suit. Kevin Portugal hanging on in 4th, Konzo in 5th, Spaghetti and Chips, Rinky Marie doing a very good job in 7th place. Tough to Handle's dropped back, as you can imagine, because he spent the last lap defending from the Mercedes of Nigel. We'll jump on board with the Red Bull driver of Zenki, then the highest driver in this field on the super soft tyres, a used set as well that is carried over from qualifying. So this guy obviously planning a one-stop strategy and has good pace as well. A little bit of wheel rubbing there between the two of them, but up the inside into the hairpin. Should be a comfortable move for the Red Bull driver. He should have DRS as well, because the detection point is quite a way back from the hairpin, and if he's managed to get that move done and then pick up DRS as well. Indeed, the letterbox opens on the Aston Martin Red Bull, but he has to defend the inside because Nigel in the second Mercedes has got a nice amount of top end speed as well. And fair back then, Larkin just had to turn in a little bit early to make sure he didn't get cut off by Nigel. Tough to handle with a new fastest lap. But the rest of the midfield seem very close together. All the way through down to 17th. Wazzy has obviously been in the pits to fix damage at the end of lap 1 or 2. So it's Dougie Antonio at least. We've got yellow flags in sector 1. Owen Wyatt is losing positions. As I tried to go to him, but there we go. Right, let's have a look at him. What's going on with Owen Wyatt? He's got a bit of damage on that front wing. Hard to tell, but he's down in 16th. So 20 boy EVR Matt and Paul McGuinness have all managed to get past. And these guys still very close together. Tough to handle has now dropped that little battle between Zenki and Nigel, and is now starting to focus his attentions on the guys up front as well. Just a couple of little gaps starting to form. The biggest one is between 8th and 9th, and if you jump on board, that is the biggest gap between the entire 17 car field, because Wazzy's made a pit stop. So these guys still very close together, and it's Zenki that has to defend the inside coming into the final chicane, but Nigel just sweeps right round the outside with the DRS. Thank you very much. And Zenki has damage on the front right, just caught it there. You'll be able to see again there's no end plate on the front right of that Red Bull front wing, so that's going to be hurting him around the majority of his circuit, and he might start falling into the clutches of the likes of Larkin, the EFC Matthew, Paul McGuinness as well, who's not made that much progress from the start, only up 1 position. But Lewis Finn up into 2nd place at the moment, and you can see that Zenki is now starting to struggle a little bit on that front wing. He's lost touch to Nigel, and he's got Larkin and EFC Matthew behind him, tough to handle. Still keeping Rinky Marie nice and honest, as Wazzy sets a new fastest lap, having gone for another set of hyper soft tyres, which is quite surprising. He obviously wants to use his tyres to its advantage, try and jump a few people, and then come in for maybe a set of super softs around about lap 14 or 15. We're right at the front, Dougie Antonio now starting to fall into the clutches of Lewis, who's going to have DRS here coming down into the chicane. Dougie does defend the inside, so Lewis has got to do this around the hard way. It's going to be late of the late breakers, chops across the front of the McLaren front wing, and does take the lead of the race coming into lap 6. Already on to 6 of 35, but Dougie there might challenge you back going into turn 1. Oh, he's had to back out of it. Very, very close. Very hard, but a fair aggressive driving between these guys. You've got Flexi in 3rd. As I said before, he wants to bounce back from the disappointment of retiring in Monaco when he was in a good position. Kevin Portugal, we know, is a very quick driver. Konzo is now up behind this as well. Spaghetti Chips has dropped back a little bit. He's over a second away from these guys, and is now starting to fall into the clutches of Rinky Marie, who's desperate for another good result this season. Tough to handle. Our championship leader all the way down in 8th place at the moment. Struggled in qualifying, struggling here in the race. Well, meanwhile, Dougie and Lewis going into battle again. There's side by side coming out of the right-left chicane. And Flexi might have an opportunity to go up the inside. Are we 3 wide into the hairpin? Please don't say that. And Lewis has got to drag the car wide. And now Flexi's got to be careful as well, because he's got Kevin Portugal behind him and Konzo as well. We'll jump on board with our 4th place driver. You can barely tell where the 3 cars are. They're so close together. They're all ducking and weaving and trying to find position for themselves. Flexi just drives right around the outside of the McLaren of Dougie. So it's Dougie now down into 3rd position. Fantastic racing with these top 4 here. Kevin Portugal up the inside of the McLaren driver, and Dougie has gone from 1st to 4th in the space of a lap, but he's not going to give this up lightly. Up the inside again for turn 2. And ever coming through into 3 and 4. Dougie will have the inside, so Kevin Portugal's got to back out of it. So we've got a battle for the top 4, and then we've got a nice battle here for 5th, 6th and 7th as well. And Spaghetti Chips will be hoping and praying he can keep with these guys for now. Oh, Flexi there picks up a 3-second time penalty, as does LMC Vettel. Strict corner cutting rules here in ILR, so don't be surprised if there's a litany of penalties here tonight. Oh, and I think Kevin Portugal's just made contact with the wall there on the outside of turn 8. That might have damaged his front wing just a little bit. Nice camera shot to show us, but I can't tell on board. And meanwhile, Lewis leads them. Lap 7 of 35. We bring up the tyres again, because those on the Hypersoft tyres. Oh, and there's contact there between Dougie and Kevin Portugal. Might be a bit of netcode, might be something else, but Kevin Portugal now has significant damage on the front right, and he taking the opportunity to pit as soon as possible. This is going to be an unscheduled pit stop then for the Mercedes driver, because he was on the ultra soft tyres. New front wing, going for the super softs. Be 27 laps to try and get them to the end. Konzo, meanwhile, I've missed it, but he's made a pit stop as well and gone for the super soft tyres. So Lewis leads, just 4 tenths ahead of Flexi. Dougie Antonio still there in 3rd position. Rinky Marie now up into 4th place, so he's managed to get past Spaghetti Chips somewhere. So the Red Bull driver very strong here early on. Spaghetti Chips and tough to handle them. 1st and 2nd in the championship, 5th and 6th on track. And they've got to be careful because Nigel is looking feisty behind as well in the Mercedes. Larkin has now managed to get past Zenki, who's got that damage on the front right. It's been a quiet race so far for the Red Bull drivers. They were hyping each other up before this, hoping for a positive result in their Constructors' Charge. But at the moment, only one of them is in the points, and that's EFC Matthew in 10th place. So any of the Hypersoft drivers going to be pitting at the end of this lap. It looks like, oh, Lewis is in. Lewis is in at the end of lap 7. Or lap 8 I should say, for a new set of tyres, and he was running the ultra soft tyres, so that is a surprise. So the Hyper's going longer than some of the drivers on the ultras here. So Flexi retakes the lead, Dougie up into 2nd, Rinky Marie now sniffing a podium spot, and Lewis will fall all the way down the order with this field being so heavily congested. And our championship leader, tough to handle, still hanging on in 4th place. Good result so far coming Nigel's way if he can keep going. Kevin Portugal picks up a 3-second time penalty, and Nigel's managed to get past Spaghetti Chips somewhere. So one McLaren driver doing well in 2nd place, the other one faltering a little bit. Larkin now up into 7th place. He'll be hoping to put a good show on here in front of the league. Let him know what he's all about. Zenki in 8th, still hanging on with that damaged front wing, so good performance by him. EFC Matthew up to 9th. Paul McGuinness now into the dizzying heights of 10th. I think it's the highest he's ever been so far this season. He's going to get a nosebleed of it being that high up the order. But he's got EVR Matt sniffing all over the back of him in 11th place. Owen Wyatt has just passed 20 Boy for 12th and 13th. A couple of seconds back to LMC Vettel. And then the guys that have made a pit stop already. Konzo in 15th has gone for the super soft tyres. Lewis in 16th, super soft tyres. Kevin Portugal as well. Spaghetti Chips in the pit. So we've got more overtaking going on here throughout the field. This is EVR Matt and Paul McGuinness going into battle and into contact as well, coming down to turn 1. And EVR Matt should put this move away. But Paul McGuinness, nice bit of speed and grip coming out of turn 2. EVR Matt struggling a little bit, but still side by side. And I think both of them just made a bit of contact with the wall there, but still side by side. And that's brought Owen Wyatt and 20 Boy into this as well. So fighting and battling throughout the midfield here. And EVR Matt really pushing these super soft tyres. He's sliding all over the show at the moment. Paul McGuinness has managed to get ahead. Oh, a bit of jinking there between the two drivers. And EVR Matt still holding on for the moment. But Owen Wyatt looking very feisty in the Alfa Romeo Sauber, and 20 Boy holding on as well. He's another driver desperate for a good result. This season has not gone his way. A litany of mistakes and incidents with other drivers. Meanwhile, further up, Rinky Marie is now up into 2nd place as our leaders pit then. So at the end of 10 laps, Flexi and Dougie Antonio, 1st and 2nd, decide they've had enough of the hyper soft tyres. And Flexi, what's going on there? Oh, what is going on in Flexi's car? What was that about? Might have just been a bit of a visual glitch because Dougie is still a couple of seconds back. So that was a weird. That's the weirdest pit stop I've ever seen. But there we go. Flexi has completed it, coming out on the super soft tyres. So Konzo in all of this has won because he's jumped the entire lot of them. He was behind Dougie, Kevin Portugal, Lewis and Flexi, but Konzo pitted first and has used the time well to get a nice little undercut on the entire field that was ahead of him. So Konzo is our net leader here. But with 4 laps completed already on them super soft tyres, he may or may not be able to get to the end. And we're up ahead, these guys still scrapping over the lower points positions. But it's Rinky Marie leads then. Tough to handle now into 2nd place. Nigel in 3rd, Larkin in 4th, Zenki in 5th as the pit stops start to take effect. So wherever I seem to be looking, there seems to be a lot of action, as you've got the guys that have already made their first pit stops here, starting to fight their way through the tail end of the field. Konzo is the leading car of that, already up into 9th place. Oh, and he's locked him up massively there. And I think, was it Owen Wyatt possibly? Yeah, Owen Wyatt just going completely, almost straight on there at the hairpin. Got his braking all wrong. Unfortunately for Konzo, he's managed to get away with it, but Owen Wyatt's race is now severely compromised. Meanwhile, what is going on up here? It's like Piccadilly Circus at rush hour. Every car imaginable is trying to share the same piece of tarmac. Konzo is involved in all this. He needs to get past 20 Boy and start to put some distance between himself and the guys behind it. Have already made the pit stop, but Flexy's up there. Kevin Portugal, Lewis, LMC Vittel is being squeezed out. He's yet to make a pit stop. So all of these guys trying to fight over the same piece of tarmac. I can see a crash happening. Flexi puts up the hand of rage, making contact with Konzo. More contact with Konzo there as well. And now Lewis is getting involved in all this. I don't know where to look. I think I'll jump on board on a Mercedes drive. It's going to give us the clearest view yet. These guys, of course, are all scrapping for the net lead of this race. And they're separated by what? I don't know. You could probably throw a napkin over this. That was a late move up the inside by Kevin Portugal. And Lewis had to take avoiding action. Now he's right up behind the Williams here of Konzo as we approach the hairpin. Is he going to think about a move up the inside? He is. He's late on the brakes, but he's got to be careful he doesn't cream into the back of Flexi. But Lewis does put a good move there on Konzo. He has to give the Williams driver space. These two side by side then. Who's going to get the DRS? I think they both will, to be honest. Everyone is so close together. Meanwhile, Larkin in 5th place has retired. Rinky Marie has a 5-second stop-go penalty for a severe collision with Larkin. So something's happened to them too. You can see the Toro Rosso there off to the left-hand side. Dougie has a 3-second time penalty. These guys are still scrapping over the same piece of tarmac. I need these guys to calm down just so I can take a quick breather. But Konzo, 20 Boy is now involved in all this as well. So Flexi and Lewis have managed to get past 20 Boy. Now it's up to Konzo to try and get past Kevin Portugal there, still hanging on as well. Dougie Antonio is now caught back up. Spaghetti Chips as well. He's at the tail end of this massive train of cars as Konzo and Kevin Portugal continue to battle. Now coming down into the DRS point here, we've got a Red Bull going slowly up ahead. That's Rinky Marie. So I'm not too sure what's happened to Rinky Marie, but he's going slow. Does he have a punch? Oh, and he's lost the control of the car. And he's made contact with someone. I'm not too sure who, but Rinky Marie has made contact with someone. We need to really have a look to see what's going on there. With LMC Vettel by the looks of it, because Rinky Marie has picked up a 5-second time penalty. Meanwhile, this is all still kicking off. Look at this. I don't know where to look. These guys really need to start calming down. Flexi has managed to get past Paul McGuinness. So Flexi now the lead car in this train. But Lewis is very close behind as well. Managed to get the jump on his teammate. Yellow flags. And Konzo is out. Konzo is out. And he's made contact, I think, there with Dougie Antonio and Kevin Portugal. So these guys have finally tripped over each other. And a host of the front runners immediately eliminated in one moment. You can see there in the background, Konzo and Kevin Portugal out. We have a virtual safety car. Rinky Marie has retired as well due to whatever issues he had. So it has happened what I expected to happen. Some of the leaders fighting over the same piece of tarmac. It was always going to go wrong. I can't put blame on who because I didn't catch it. I just saw cars disintegrating on the exit of the final chicane. It could be a case of one car lost it into the wall and everyone else just ploughed in, or it could be 2 or 3 people trying to go in to the same corner at the same time. It was never going to work. I'm not too sure what, but Kevin Portugal and Konzo, who are running at the front of the field, are now out of the race, and let's paving the way for the likes of Flexi, who's now up into 4th place to regain control of this race once the guys ahead make their pit stops as well. So it's EVR Matt's turn now to start to come under threat from the quicker guys. Here comes Lewis then with the DRS up the inside into the final chicane. Side by side through it as well and out of it. A little bit of wheel rubbing there as Rinky Marie leaves the session. In the background there, I think LMC Vettel just made contact with the wall. We've got Nigel and EFC Matthew making their first pit stop of the race. So Zenki then is the last guy for Flexi to try and get past, unless Zenki decides to pit before Flexi has the opportunity to overtake. So the true order is at the moment, and Flexi is leading this race. Lewis is in 2nd place. Nigel is now into 3rd. He's managed to get the jump on Tough to Handle, who will be in 4th. EFC Matthew in 5th place. because his guys aren't exactly spread out by a million seconds. Spaghetti Chips has had to make a second pit stop. Owen White has just been in as well. Dougie Antonio has had to make a second pit stop. Wazzy as well. Still, well, he's slowly catching back up to these guys. He's made 2 pit stops as well, but he's not exactly a million miles away from these guys. As Flexi has already taken the lead. Okay, so Zenki obviously struggling then. Of course, he still has that damaged front wing. As Konzo unfortunately leaves the session, he'll be bitterly disappointed with whatever happened. As Zenki comes into the pits now then. So Lewis takes second place. EVR Matt will take third for now. But the real third place driver is Nigel then. He comes across the line now, up into 7th place. So one Williams down. The other Williams still remains, but tough to handle. This is a race he'd probably want to forget. He's looking for a net 4th place here. But with Spaghetti Chips behind him on track, Konzo out of the race as well. This is still a good opportunity for Tough to Handle to pick up some more points for himself. He can afford an off day every now and again, especially when his championship challenges are struggling as well. But as it stands at the moment, it's Flexi, Lewis and Nigel that will be in 3rd place, because you've still got to wait for EVR Matt, 20 Boy, Paul McGuinness and LMC Vettel to make their first and only pit stops. Well, I needed that quick breather because the amount of action we've had in the last few laps, yeah, no words to describe really. But LMC Vettel was starting to make some moves. He's already got past Paul McGuinness. Now he's seen off 20 Boy in the same lap. So LMC Vettel, 17 laps on those super soft tyres. The same for 20 Boy and EVR Matt. And Paul McGuinness, shout out to him. He's running still quite high, and he's completed half this race on a set of ultra soft tyres. Now comes into the pits. So the challenge here for Paul McGuinness is not only to finish the race and score some points, because he needs some, but he's got an opportunity here when he puts on the super soft tyres to get a nice undercut on the likes of EVR Matt and 20 Boy here and put himself right in the contention for a top 5. He's having a front wing change out, so that's a shame. That is going to drop Paul McGuinness back by several seconds. I think even Owen White and Dougie Antonio might get past as well. But it's Flexi then that leads this race then, 1.2 seconds ahead of Lewis. They've got some breathing space now because EVR Matt continues to fall away, although he finds himself on his own at the moment and he'll be very thankful for that. 20 Boy then starting to defend that 4th place from Nigel. And this podium isn't set in stone yet because you've got LMC Vettel that's still looking very quick, and Tough to Handle is now back in the frame as well, on board with our championship leader. There's an LMC Vettel there trying to squeeze his way through. No space there on the apex. So Tough to Handle will want to get past the Ferrari as soon as possible. But both these guys will have DRS. So it's going to be a straight line speed test between these two. And the Williams takes it. So he's managed to dispose of one car. As the other one, 20 Boy, makes a pit stop as well. Oh, and Tough to Handle there makes contact with the wall of champions. I think he's managed to get away with no damage. So once EVR Matt and LMC Vettel make their one and only pit stop, we will get a true reflection on the order. It will be Flexi, Lewis and Nigel in the top 3, but Tough to Handle hanging on there as well. EFC Matthew will be looking at a 5th place. Zenki will be looking at 6th. 20 Boys still in the pits. The McLarens, meanwhile, having both made 2 pit stops now, find themselves both back in the points, but 9th and 10th is not where they want to be. So there we go, and Harry Larkin, who I can only assume is Larkin 4S, has just come onto the street to say I didn't go side by side with anyone, came through the final chicane to Rinky Marie being sideways in the wall and I hit him. So it's a simple case of coming through the final chicane, seeing a car in a bit of trouble and having nowhere to go. Wrong place, wrong time. That gave Rinky Marie a time penalty for a severe collision. And unfortunately it ended Larkin's race, but it doesn't matter for Rinky Marie, he's also out of this race then. So unfortunately a mistake by Rinky Marie, saw him in the wall, Larkin came through the chicane and had nowhere to go and unfortunately made contact with the Red Bull driver. So EFC Matthew picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. It won't be the first or last time. Meanwhile his teammate is in the pits having a new front wing. LMC Vettel might get the jump on the Renault driver, indeed he does. So there we go then, there is our true order for the race now. Now it comes down to see if anyone else still needs to make a pit stop. Flexi leads, Lewis second, Nigel in third, Tough to Handle in fourth, EFC Matthew in fifth. Where will LMC Vettel filter back in between the McLaren drivers then on the fresh set of ultra soft tyres? So the gains that LMC Vettel has made in the last couple of laps has really paid dividends. He finds himself inside the top 10. Owen Wyatt is now up inside the top 10 as well. But he's got to be careful because EVR Matt very close behind him as well. And you've got Paul McGuinness and 20 Boy there, almost neck and neck as well for 12th and 13th. And Wazzy still hanging on there in 14th. So even at this stage, less than 40 seconds separates the entire field. But it's Flex Events League and Lewis is in the pits. Lewis is in the pits. I don't think he's got a front wing. He's definitely going to have a front wing change. I see no end plate on the front left there. So Lewis has had an instant somewhere and he's going to be in for a new front wing. This is an unscheduled pit stop for our second place driver. He's going to tumble down the order here, unfortunately. So Nigel now moves up into second place and this race gets better and better for Tough to Handle as well. He's now up inside the podium spots as Lewis comes back out of the pits then. And another set of ultra soft tyres. He should be rejoining comfortably in 7th place. But he's got 4.5 seconds I should say, to try and find on spaghetti chips. So yeah, Zenki has profited from all of this action. He's now in 5th place, even though he ran the first half of this race with a damaged front wing. But he's made his one and only stop, and he's still inside the top 5. EFC Matthew running well now in 4th place. But Tough to Handle in 3rd, now starting to make inroads on the Mercedes of Nigel. No, I think it's the first time I've seen him this high up this season. Another driver who's desperate for points. Nigel at the moment, 3 retirements with best results so far this season of 6th. We've got Zenki as well. The best he's had was 6th at Monaco a couple of weeks ago. He can go better than that tonight with the 5th place. Flex Event in the lead of this race. He'll be looking to pick up his 2nd race win of the season, and Tough to Handle will be hoping to continue his impressive run this season as well. So Lewis then back out in 7th place. LMC Vettel will be hoping to keep this clean as Dougie Antonio makes a move up the inside going into final chicane. LMC Vettel at the moment only has 1 point to his name, the 10th place he picked up in Australia. At the moment he's looking to triple that with a 9th place here, and EVR Matt rounding outside the top 10. Another driver that's looking to pick up his season again after a couple of disappointing results recently, including a disqualification after the Spanish race for incidents on track towards the end of the race. So Owen White now down in 11th, Paul McGuinness in 12th, Wazzy and 20 Boy in 13th and 14th. Lap 23 then of 35, Flex Event. Oh, and Vettel's out. Vettel is out of the race. Where is he? There's his car there. So he's made contact with the wall on the left-hand side. And you can see that the front left has come away from that Ferrari. So after I was saying that Vettel was desperate for a good result here, unfortunately it's ended in the wall yet again. And the Ferrari driver continues his terrible run this season with just 1 point to his name so far. That drops us down into just 13 of the 18 drivers that started. So it's your typical crash fest here in ILR3. But with it being a circuit like this, there's always going to be several retirements and several incidents. So Flex Event extends the lead over Nigel. It's up to 11.5 seconds. Because Nigel is busy defending that 2nd place from Tough to Handle behind him. Zenki now up into 4th place. EFC Matthew into 5th. Spaghetti Chip still slowly creeping up that order. But I'm just looking at the guys here on the ultra soft tyres. They've still got 12 laps left to run. Spaghetti Chips has already completed 9 on his. Dougie in 8th place has completed 8 on his. And Tough to Handle picks up a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. Same for Zenki as well. Spaghetti Chips now as well picks up a 3-second time penalty, and it's probably not the first time for the majority of these drivers. And because, I mean, you can take Flexi out of the equation because he's so far up the road at the moment, but these guys here from 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, they're so close together on track that a 3-second time penalty can really make the difference in the positional changes once these guys finish the race. So the positions you see them in, I'm betting that they're not going to be there at the end of this race, I can tell you that much. Someone out there is going to have at least 10 or 12 seconds worth of penalties. So it's really one of the circuits there where it does, you know, consistency favours the brave. And if you can keep it clean throughout as best as you can find yourself moving up the order. Certainly if there's a late race safety car as well that bunches the entire field up, you could find yourself trolling around in 8th or 9th place, but moving up to about 4th or 5th by dint or keeping it clean whilst everyone else has picked up multiple penalties. But as it stands in the moment, it shouldn't affect Flexi, as Paul McGuinness becomes the next driver to fall foul of the white lines on the side of the circuit. He picks up a 3-second penalty, just 2.2 seconds away from a potential World Championship point. So more comments coming in here then. I will of course read them out if it causes a bit of drama. Why not? Rinky Marie has now come on and said, wasn't a mistake, got taken out by tough to handle. He wanted to pit, so he run straight into the back of me. So that's an interesting one to talk about then. And Conzo coming on here saying that Dougie needs to go back and race on the Simpsons hit and run. So yeah, Conzo there very unhappy with Dougie's antics on circuit. And Scott coming in as well saying that Flexi is dominating this race. He certainly is at the moment. But I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that Nigel is busy defending, and the gap between Flexi and Nigel hasn't really changed in the last few laps. However, Flexi is running an older set of super soft tyres. But he managed to carve his way through the field whilst a few other drivers failed to do so. And Nigel still holding on to that 2nd place ahead of Tough to Handle at the moment. Zenke might be a factor in this, as Lewis and EFC Matthew go into battle. Lewis recovering after having to make an unscheduled pit stop. He's been in the pits twice, so he's back up into 5th place. EFC Matthew down to 6th. Spaghetti Chips is hanging on there in 7th as well. Meanwhile, Paul McGuinness and 20 Boy are going into a nice heated battle over 11th place. Both drivers have DRS as well. Oh, a little bit of contact there between them. And Paul McGuinness will try us around the outside, now through the inside, squeezing the Toro Rosso driver wide as well. Probably a little bit of payback for a little bit of contact we had a minute ago. And Tough to Handle picks up another 3-second time penalty. Same for EFC Matthew. So these guys starting to push as well, as hard as they can, exploring the limits of grip. Meanwhile, Nigel and Tough to Handle are side by side, coming out of 2. And Nigel keeps that 2nd place. So Tough to Handle starting to struggle here. I'm trying to think of a funny play on words on Tough to Handle. So yeah, Tough to Handle following Nigel is finding the handling tough. No, okay, I'll stop that. But he needs to do whatever he can to get up into 2nd place, potentially start to give chase to Flexi ahead. 16 laps completed on them super soft tyres. He's up the inside this time. But Nigel getting a nice little exit as well. This is starting to bring Zenke and Lewis. Don't forget Lewis, very quick now. He's on the fresh set of ultra softs as well. So Tough to Handle knows he's starting to lose time. He needs to get past this Mercedes driver. He needs to make this move stick, and does so now on the run to the final chicane. And that does now promote Tough to Handle up into 2nd place. But Zenke is looking dangerous behind on the ultra soft tyres, as is Lewis as well. And Flexi picks up a 3-second time penalty. That's certainly not his first, so he needs to calm down a little bit. He doesn't want to start picking up multiple penalties in the last few laps here, because he can find that 12.5-second lead completely eradicated at the end, although we know that Tough to Handle has a plenty of penalties as well. So this race order will still change. 8 laps to go, including the one that our leaders are on at the moment. If they all want to get to the end of the tyres, it'll be Flexi would have completed 25 laps with a set of super soft tyres. Tough to Handle 22, Nigel 20, Zenke 19 on the set of ultra soft tyres. Spaghetti Chips would have been 21 on a set of ultra soft tyres. That's a big ask. So we might see some late race punches. We might see some late race pit stops as well for these guys that just can't get these tyres to the end. So Nigel has lost out on second place, but is he going to hold on to a potential podium here? Because Zenke is looking very fast behind in fourth. Lewis as well, one of the fastest drivers this evening. And if I was a betting man, I'd say that Lewis would take the third spot here. And while further back, here we see Matthew and Spaghetti Chips. Close in combat. This is over sixth. And Spaghetti Chips' ultra soft tyres must be coming to the end of their life soon. 14 laps completed already. An EVR map. So the second Renault has the second McLaren behind him. So we've got Renault McLaren in 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. We've got yellow flags in sector 1 and 3. Paul McGuinness has had a disaster. He has no front wing. He's made contact somewhere. I don't know with who. Possibly one of these two, to be honest with you. Oh, and Wazzy's lost the back end as well. So Paul McGuinness then, running in 13th and last, has got to make a late race pit stop here to fix the front wing, which isn't good for him. Meanwhile, Lewis and Zenke going into battle, and Lewis has won that one, so he's up to 4th place now. You can see they're tough to handle, just recovering some of his energy, coming down the back straight there, which has allowed the likes of Nigel, Lewis and Zenke to close up. So 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, all in the same shot. So the podium position still unchallenged yet. Spaghetti Chips manages with the DRS to get past EFC Matthew. And he's still going to be battling it out. And Lewis looking very feisty now for 4th place in that Haas. Oh, and Nigel picks up a penalty. That's what happens when you're busy defending or busy attacking. Sometimes the concentration goes a little bit because you're too busy focusing on the cars around you. So penalties, I can say, will absolutely change the way this race is going to finish. So here comes Lewis then. Up the inside into the hairpin. Very nice move indeed. Nigel gave him the space, gave him the room. Very courteous, very respectful. And Lewis now up into that 3rd position. He'll have DRS as well. Unlike tough to handle in 2nd place, so Lewis has an opportunity here to potentially challenge the Williams driver into turn 1, because he'll have DRS again, beep in the ear, finger on the button, and the Williams driver is going to come under attack, I feel, very shortly from the Haas of Lewis. And this is just allowing Flexi to continue to control the lead of the race and maintain the pace ahead. So a great battle here for the final couple of podium spots. It's tough to handle, just holding on from Lewis at the moment. Hopefully these guys can keep it relatively clean. Oh, tough to handle's made a mistake, and Lewis is going to sail on by. He's going to do the cutback there, the switchback I should say, on the exit of the corner. So tough to handle ran too wide into the left-hander, and Lewis has taken advantage of that, and Nigel could possibly take advantage of where he has, and tough to handle down into 4th, and this is going to give opportunity for Zenke. Tough to handle could go from 2nd to 5th here in the blink of an eye, defending inside for the hairpin. It's gone deep on the brakes, and Zenke will look to try and get the cutback here. He'll have DRS, but so will tough to handle. So it's Lewis this time in 2nd place, and it's got to defend. These guys still pushing as hard as they can. Flexi won't mind though. 4 laps to go. Oh, and there's contact there between tough to handle and Nigel. That was a rash move from the Williams, and he's going to pay the penalty here by going into battle with Zenke, who's now at the inside. And I think he's taken that position. He has. So tough to handle then's been pushed all the way back to 5th. Paul McGuinness picks up a time penalty, but he's all the way down in 13th. Wazzy's also made another pit stop as well, but he's down in 12th. Spaghetti Chips and EFC Matthew still fighting over 6th and 7th. EVR Matt is still fighting with Dougie over 8th and 9th, and it's 20 Boy now in 10th place, but he's defending from Owen, who's on a battered set of ultra soft tyres. 17 laps completed. Wow. Meanwhile then, coming down to complete lap 32 of 35, just 3 to go in a matter of seconds. Flexi then Can he get these super soft tyres to the end without any dramas? Lewis is starting to catch. It's the first time that gap between Flexi and whoever it's been in second place has come under 10 seconds. And Nigel picks up another 3-second time penalty. He's starting to struggle, I think, in third place. Zenke as well has been battling really hard all race. A great performance so far. But here comes Tough to Handle then. He's going to try to move around the outside. It won't work round there. And Zenke gets a better exit as well. So he holds on to fourth for the moment. And in all of this, drama and all of this carnage and all of the conflict that we've seen tonight, Tough to Handle at the moment can do no better than fifth. But he'll be happy in the knowledge that his two main championship rivals at the moment, Spaghetti Chips, is behind on circuit, and he's really struggling here to shake off EFC Matthew and his teammate Conzo, unfortunately, out of the race. So it's been a bit of drama. I'll be expecting a few incident reports to come in tonight from ILR3. There usually is with these guys. They're so competitive, they're all together on the circuit a lot of the time. But sometimes they do, unfortunately, trip over each other, as we've seen tonight and countless other times this season. Oh, contact there between Owen Wyatt and 20 Boy, and 20 Boy into the wall, and his charge for a point is now over. 20 Boy, I was just watching as I was talking there, was just giving Owen Wyatt a bit of a squeeze onto the grass. Probably didn't realise Owen Wyatt probably had his front wing just there, and he moved over in front of the Sauber driver, and unfortunately contact was made. And 20 Boy, again, another incident, another race where he'd want to forget. And there's probably question marks over his continued participation in ILR3, because he needs some positive results soon. Because at the moment all he seems to be doing is basically trading paint with every other driver on circuit. But Flexi then coming around to complete lap 34 of 35. Lewis is charging hard, 7.5 seconds away now, so he's a couple of seconds a lap quicker. As you would imagine, Flexi's super soft tyres are very old at this point. Nigel looks safe in third, Zenke safe in fourth. Tough to Handle has dropped off quite a lot actually in the last couple of laps. In fact, Tough to Handle is now slowly coming under attack from Spaghetti Chips and EFC Matthew, and again penalties might play a part in this. So I think Tough to Handle's super soft tyres have given up a little bit here, because Spaghetti Chips from absolutely nowhere can now see a potential fifth place, and EFC Matthew as well still hanging on there. We're into the final lap here. And EVR Matt safe in 8th. Dougie will pick up a couple of points, and Owen will pick up 1 point. It's Flexiven that leads. He's managed to drive his way through the carnage, and he's dominated the second half of this race. Lewis though is continuing to bring the gap down. Nigel looks good in third. Zenke, a fantastic performance by the Red Bull driver tonight. He did half this race with a damaged front wing, and he's going to come away over fourth. Tough to Handle though. I think he's now starting to struggle with the tyres. You've got Spaghetti Chips in sixth, and EFC Matthew still trying to push as much as they can. The Haas behind Flexi, don't worry, that's for lapped Paul McGuinness. It's not Nigel that's closed up so much. So the Force India driver then, after crashing out with contact from a back marker in Monaco, voicing his displeasure about it as well, has bounced back in the perfect way to take the race win and the 25 points here, and he's allowed Paul McGuinness to unlap himself as well. But Flexi takes the race win. Lewis confirmed in second place, and is it a potential podium here for the Mercedes of Nigel? Zenke coming across the line, jumps him. Zenke takes third place, and it's Nigel down into fourth. Tough to Handle in fifth place. Does that change at all? It doesn't. Spaghetti Chips in sixth, EFC Matthew in seventh. The second Renault coming across the line now. EVR Matt picks up seventh place. He jumps his own teammates, so Matthew had a few. Dougie Antonio across the line remains in ninth place, and unless Owen Wyatt has the best part of 15 seconds worth of penalties, he will claim the final point. So congratulations to Flex Event, picks up the race win. Lewis in second position as well, and Zenki a fantastic drive to third place for Red Bull as they spray the champagne here. 3 Brits on the podium in the Force India team, and its driver very happy with the 25 points. Monaco's disaster and nightmare is forgotten about with the 25 points for Flexi. So we go there. Redemption for Flexi. Everyone had penalties. Lewis in second place, Zenki in third. Nigel then, a good result for him. He needed a positive result tonight. 4th place. Disappointing to not be on the podium. Our championship leader can only manage 5th place here with all the carnage. Spaghetti Chips confirmed in 6th place. The Renaults score more points, but only been wanting more coming into this evening's race with 7th and 8th. Dougie Antonio, with all the disasters that were going on in that race, managed to pick up 9th place. And Owen White secures the final point for Sauber. Wazzy, Paul McGuinness and 20 Boy 11th, 12th and 13th. We lost LMC Vettel, Rinky Marie, Kevin Portugal, Konzo and Larkin. So do stay tuned. Unfortunately Zenki's microphone is not working. He told me before the race, so I'm going to be inviting and interviewing just Flexi and Lewis. So both Flexi and Lewis have now joined me for the podium interviews. Guys, I've now spoken to you before, but if you could just take a couple of seconds to double check your party settings to make sure you've allowed your voice to be shared, and I'll start with the questions in a few seconds. Okay, first things first then, Flexi, a bit of a redemption result this was for you after the disappointment of Monaco and all the fallout on social media afterwards. You've had a couple of weeks with last week's break as well to really go away and refocus your thoughts for the season, and you bounced back here in the best possible way with the 25 points in the race win, although it wasn't easy, was it? Middle of that race there with you guys having made your first pit stop, it all got a bit contagious and a bit dangerous fighting your way through the back markers as well, which must have been a heart in mouth moment for you for a few laps there.
Yeah, thanks for the congratulations. But yeah, it was after that first pit stop, and then coming up behind the train, I kind of had flashbacks to last week. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, managed to get through the field pretty well. I think Lewis did as well, and we had a really good battle. It's just a shame that he unfortunately got damaged, because I'd have loved to have battled him the whole way to the end, because that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and just watching your lap times there in the last 7 or 8 laps, was it a case of you just controlling the pace? Because once Lewis managed to get up to second place, he was catching you a couple of seconds a lap. So was it a case of there was no really point in pushing, or were the tyres starting to go as well? Because you completed the best part of 2/3 of that race on a set of super soft tyres. So were you starting to worry about they might let go before the end of the race, or was it just a case of you knew you had the race win, just focus on bringing the car home?
Well, I saw the gap was about 12 seconds at one point, so I thought I'd just put the engine into like low and just try and keep the car from wheel spinning and try and save the tyres and get to the end because I knew I had the gap. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just controlled the gap and came home to win. So yeah.
Now, of course, I've touched on it a couple of times during the stream and just now as well. After the disappointments of Monaco, obviously, there's no point asking you if you're going to take back, what happened and just push it under the carpet, forget about it, and move on because you've done that in the best possible way. But after the disappointments of Monaco, when he was in the commanding position for it to end the way it did, was you worried that something else could happen again tonight as well? Whether it had been your fault or someone else's as well. I know you said you had a few hairy moments with a few other guys there, but were you just thinking coming into the race tonight, you just wanted a clean race, just to wipe the slate clean and show people that it doesn't matter if you have incidents or not, you could just focus on what you're doing to get the best result week in and week out?
Yeah, I did have a few worries coming into this race, because anything can happen in Formula One, and you just got to deal with it at the end of the day, and kind of just want to get Monaco out of my mind now, focus on the rest of the season, hopefully have a good season. But yeah, towards the end I was kind of worrying about maybe hitting the wall of champions a few times, or if a back marker would come out of nowhere, like if they pit or something, if it was just like all psychological things, but yeah, managed to get home safe and dry, so that's all that matters.
Obviously, it's not the first time I've spoken to you this season. You won the race in China as well. This is now your second race win of the 7 races you've competed, and you've managed to finish 3 retirements as well. It's been a bit of a patchy season for you. You either finish well or you end up, unfortunately, retiring. Is it a case now of just knuckling down and maybe starting to chip away at the guys ahead of you? Because the result tonight puts you right up there with the guys like Konzo and Boogster as well, well inside the top 3 or top 4. Do you think you've got an opportunity at maybe winning the title, or do you think they're tough to handle, is already possibly just a bit too far ahead?
I think after tonight it shows that this tier is incredibly competitive and anyone can finish anywhere given in a given race. So just gotta keep focused, keep doing what I'm doing. Focus on my 1 lap pace more as well, because that's been going pretty well this season compared to previous seasons. So yeah, I think just focus up, keep it going race by race, and see what happens.
A final question for me then. Next week we go to a brand new event on the calendar, the Paul Ricard circuit in France. Of course, a lot of drivers have all been there doing online races, career modes, testing as well, and time trial. Have you done many laps around Paul Ricard, and what's your initial thought of the circuit as well?
I haven't done too much of Paul Ricard. Maybe a few laps here and there in sprint lobbies or whatever, but haven't really practiced there league race wise. So that would be fun to do. I really like the track. It's really nice to have a few fast flowing corners around the track rather than stop start. So hoping for some good racing next week and some good battles hopefully.
Well done on bouncing back from disappointing in Monaco to take the race win and the 25 points, and thank you for joining for the podium interviews.
Thanks.
Thank you. That takes us on to our second place driver then, Lewis. Lewis, for several parts of that race you were the quickest car on circuit. You lost a bit of time obviously having to battle various other drivers to get through as well. We saw you in the wars a few times having to make unscheduled pit stops, but you must be happy in the end to come away with a second place. Possibly you could have challenged Flexi for the race win. You guys were very close together on circuit at the beginning and the middle part of the race, but for a race from your own point of view where it could have ended several times with contact from other cars, you must be happy to come away from all the carnage to pick up the second place.
I am quite happy to get that second place. At the start I made like an unscheduled pit stop to pit lap 7 I think it was, just because I got wing damage after leading like on lap 5. I thought I might as well pit now and try and get an undercut to keep with Lexi when he pitted, but then it went a bit wrong with all the carnage with the cars and all that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not the first time I've commentated on you. I know you're a very quick driver as well, and obviously being a reserve here in ILR3, do you feel that ILR3, how competitive it is in the pace, do you think it suits your driving style, or are you struggling a little bit? Because it seems that with every race that you do in here as well, you seem to be getting better and better and getting used to all the drivers around you. Are you still struggling with competing against some of these guys? Because obviously everyone races differently. Some people defend a different way and attack a different way. Are you starting to get a general consensus of how the field and how all the drivers compete in this tier?
Yeah, I got a bit of things where some people don't normally defend as hard when being lapped compared to other leagues, so I know to go a bit like less dangerous and aggressive against them lot. So I will know how to like go past a lap, should I say, slower cars after pitting, and then being at the front.
And what's the target for you this season? Obviously, being a reserve driver, you're not guaranteed of a seat every week. But if you were given an opportunity to race every week, do you think you can be consistent in top 4, top 5, and continue to pick up some good points? Or is there a few races coming up, let's say France, for example, next week, where you might struggle at?
I don't think there's many tracks coming up that I'll be struggling at. It's just that one time I found I had like a bad setup, so I've got a good setup now, so I should be decent at it.
Well done on the second place tonight for getting through all that carnage, and congratulations on the 18 points.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That therefore then brings the podium interviews and the live stream to a close. Unfortunately, Zenki messaged me before the race, said if he finished on the podium he wouldn't be joining due to having no microphone, which is a shame, because he's probably thinking right now that he wouldn't mind having a microphone so he can give me his thoughts on the race. But as for Canada itself, well, it's a typical Canada race, isn't it? A lot of action, a lot of carnage, a few people in the wall, several talking points as well in that race. But for what it's worth, I thought it was a very, very good race, and congratulations to both Flexi, Lewis and of course Zenki as well for surviving it all and securing the top 3 spots on the podium. My name has been Alex Lilliart. Thank you very much to everyone that has tuned in tonight with your comments as well, very much appreciated. Do join us next week then at 8 o'clock for both ILR3 and ILR4, commentated by Jess Games, as we tackle the Les Castellets circuit in Paul Ricard in France, which may very well throw up a few surprises with some of the guys further down the order tackling a new circuit.